This podcast will fail. And that's probably okay. But then again, I could be wrong, so who really knows? Episode 72. This podcast will fail. And hello to you, friend, potential listener. If you don't know, I'm just some guy. I'm nobody. Who I am is irrelevant to the conversation that I come here to have with you and with myself. And we are moving through the month of December, the season 4 here, coming to terms. I have had some good conversations with some friends about the things in life they have dealt with. And I've also been coming to terms with a various number of things over the course of this month. The situation around the COVID-19 pandemic, situation around trying to keep everybody safe and healthy and frustrating world that we live in here. But I knew going into this, before I even started this season that the point of tagging this as coming to terms was because I finally saw an opportunity to come to terms with some aspects of my life that I'm not particularly proud of. The idea really goes back to season 1 of this podcast, where the whole reason I started this podcast was to come to terms in a way with my life as a digital content creator over the last 15 years. And I had a great number of conversations with myself about some of the hang-ups and quote-unquote failures that I had over the years. And it was great. It really helped me to deal with these unspoken frustrations and thoughts that I've always had. So I've turned that around now as we round the corner towards the end of this month to my childhood and coming to terms with the notion of being a recovered alcoholic. And I'll tell you straight out, I struggle with this phraseology. I struggle with looking at myself as an alcoholic. And I don't know if that's common. I don't know if that is something that a lot of people who have that kind of substance abuse affliction do. I don't talk to other people really that have struggled with substance abuse. I don't have anybody in my quote-unquote circle of friends that I've ever had this conversation with, and so I don't really know. I don't know if it's something that people deal with or not, or have dealt with. Kind of like floating alone, island unto myself here, trying to figure out, what's really what. But I'm working my way through some of the more, I guess you could say, traumatic memories, but it's still, I giggle. It's in some ways very comical, some of the stupid situations that I found myself in as a child who was very often drunk, as often as possible, pretty much every weekend, and whenever I could get away with it during the week. And I think I started to kind of touch on a little bit of it yesterday. The mentality and some of the drivers behind it were not, in my recollection and self-reflection, not the typical stuff that I would think, create this kind of substance abuse issue in a young person, right? I don't believe I've ever been depressed in that way, right? I know depression is an interesting category of mental illness nowadays, and it's understood to a greater degree, and it's a wider set of troubles that folks have. Right? I'm trying to tread carefully. I don't want to piss anybody off. But I don't think that I've ever dealt with depression in my life. And same thing with like anxiety. I feared nothing. Right? Nothing bothered me in that way. Like I was never scared of dying. Right? I got drunk a lot because I enjoyed it. It was like, that was really my hobby. That's what I derived pleasure from. And I think actually when I just said that out loud, I was actually reminded at the beginning of the season, I talked about my mother for a moment, my late mother, and how indignant she was in life, and how headstrong and so sure of herself, and you couldn't argue with this person. All the years that I tried to get her to quit smoking, and I talked about that in that episode, she had said to me, you know what, I enjoy it. This is my thing. This is my only vice, and it gives me happiness. That's why I do it. And it's interesting because I guess that's what applies to the reason why. I mean, again, every teenager, I defy you to show me a teenager that wasn't somehow in a situation where they may be around a bunch of friends that are going to be, you know, hey, look, we got some beer. Oh my God, we got a bottle of hooch. You know, probably dating myself with that word, but it's not, you know, uncommon. Teenager drinking, but for me, it was my thing. It was like the ultimate escapism for me. And it's not that the world was horrible. I mean, I hated school because I wasn't good at it. I enjoyed being at school because of, you know, the friends and the associations that I had. And certainly later on, finding my wife, ultimately the girl that would become my wife. And I enjoyed all that, and that's all good. The opportunity to be a loud, obnoxious, crazy metal head, right? Walking around in all black and concert t-shirts and chains. And there was even a brief period of time where I would put like a little white sheen of makeup on my face and like a line of red, quote unquote, blood down the side of my lip. You know, went through some phases like that, but it was all like, I wanted people to see me and go, what the fuck is with that guy? What is wrong with him? That actually still carries through to today. Embrace the ridiculous. I don't care what you think of me. I'm going to make you laugh at how absurd I am. But that's the way I was in high school too. Right? I wanted that attention for being outrageous. So when it came to the drinking, I got to be literally outrageous because there was no stopping. Once you're on, you're on. Once we're in. And the fun don't stop until we run out of fuel, literal fuel. Pour more in the tank. I want to break my own personal record for how much liquid I can get. It was like a ridiculous badge of honor. So it wasn't out of depression or, you know, fear and loathing of the world or self or any of that. It was literally straight up, this is just fun. This is how I live my life and how I enjoy it, and I don't care. I got no death wish. Don't matter. I don't think I'm going to die. I was pretty sick a couple times. But it's in those moments of when I did finally achieve the goal of getting too far down the road of alcohol poisoning that, you know, I found more of those those low moments, right? And as I found that it was certainly impacting the nature of the relationships around me, those those moments of reckoning with those relationships are just another couple of line items as we really build the list of things that I'm ashamed of. All right, those low moments. So I've been happily married to the same woman for 26 years. And we were together in high school for 2 years before we got married. Prior to that, like any teenager, I dated. I dated someone for 2 years from age 14 to 16. That individual was much older than me. And I know that my drinking impacted that relationship too. And when that person, because again, they were 2 years older than me, they graduated, I was still in 10th grade and went off to college and started being around actual adults and was like, I don't need this, drunk kid. I'm an adult now. Okay, that made sense. Still a bit of a low moment, right? I think that whole idea of validation, right? Having somebody who values you and loves you and whatever. It was just one of those things that drove me towards, okay, well, I guess that's gone. So who's hooking us up? How are we going to score? Then I hopped around some other relationships like that, and it was never substantive. There was one particular low point. I had somehow convinced this girl to date me. I didn't even know her, honestly, and we never got to know each other. And it was barely like 2 weeks into that dating that I found myself in the neighborhood of where that person was, blurry-eyed. Here we go. I was, of course, right, drunk as a skunk. And I don't know why this person let me in their house. I said all kinds of stupid things. I think I remember. It was like a moment of crisis. I don't know why I felt I was in a moment of crisis, but I was like, I don't know what to do. And so I crashed on that person's couch, and I was just sick. Oh God, I was sick. I don't know how, but I know I was there for more than a day on that person's couch, trying not to die from what I assume all these years later was alcohol poisoning, because I wasn't even throwing up at that point. I'd gotten so far past throwing up that I was just gone. And I think I remember laying on that couch waiting to die. And I think somewhere in the back of my head I knew I had fucked up by dragging this poor person that I was quote unquote dating, who didn't even know me, and somehow I'm on her parents' couch trying not to die. I don't know how that's so weird. And shortly after that person was done with me, with good cause. That's understandable. Yeah. So we continue on, and I start dating my future wife. And I said this yesterday, and I still don't. I have trouble reconciling the fact of, I knew that I was a shit person. I knew this, and I didn't care. That was the big thing. I didn't care. Right, from age 13 to age 16, I don't care. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care about you. I care about not much of anything. If someone got hurt, that's not my problem. I lived very much for me and what I wanted, and getting through the week to get to the next weekend to get where I needed to be, which was drunk. I'll come back to the low point with my wife. I'll come back to that. There's one other thing I gotta address. One other thing I gotta work through here. So there's a weird moment that I think I can just about call the rock bottom for myself. And that's a tough one because I think there's a couple of rock bottoms. And they didn't all happen in sequential order, and they didn't all happen at the same time. It's like the history taught me that, by the way, I know you think that was bad, but here's a piece of context that tells you it was worse than you thought. Okay. So go back to my group of friends in the neighborhood, the drinking buddies, the boys, the gang, the whatever. I told you about the guy who was my best friend for years, Jason. I told you about the little person in the group, Billy, that we assaulted because he dared to do cocaine. The other key member of this cadre was a boy named Bobby. And I never liked Bobby. I never had any use for Bobby. And I don't think he ever had any use for me. You know, we were there, but you know, when you talk about the group of mutual friends and the you know, clutch of kids that are running around doing this, Bobby and I were never friends. He I don't know, his whole aesthetic was just obnoxious to me, right? He was one of the first hip-hop white kids that I ever really encountered, right? So for me in the 90s, and this is the early 90s, everything was metal, everything was hardcore, everything was, you know, guitars and heavy riffs and all that. For Bobby, it was rap, right? And it was the burgeoning rap culture. So I found him obnoxious. We clashed quite a bit. We butted heads. I can tell you right now, I'm starting to shake a little bit. So if I pause a lot and say a lot, I'm sorry, but I'm okay. It got to a point where Bobby and I were almost openly confronting each other on a regular basis. F you, you know, screw you, that's a stupid idea, you know, just a lot of bickering and a lot of fighting and a lot of hurt feelings. I guess, I don't know, hurt feelings, that sounds weird to say. But anyways, I went too far. One night, middle of the night, I went too far. The nature of my high school, I think I mentioned a couple episodes again, it was very much a racially divided high school. I was a racial minority in the high school. There are, 70% African American, 10% Latino, and 20% white. So, it was not uncommon to have gang fights going on in the hallways. It was, and you had to defend yourself, and you had to be ready to defend yourself. Well, my defensive item of choice was a butterfly knife. So I carried a butterfly knife with me everywhere I went, because you never knew when somebody was going to try something, and you had to be ready. Okay. So there's one particular night in the neighborhood, in the apartment complex, where I met all these people. In fact, Jesus, and now that I'm visualizing it, wow, literally outside, out front, from the very apartment where my drinking career began. Holy God. That's a revelation. Wow. We'd been going at it, we'd been fighting, and me and Bobby had just been arguing about everything, and so I'm so sorry. He said something. I don't know what he said. I don't even know what we were arguing about. I know that we were all drunk, and we were fighting, and we were arguing, and whatever it is that he said pissed me off so hard I don't know, man. Did he insult my mother? I'd call my mother a whore. I don't know. I don't even know. But I was enraged. And we started to scuffle. Right? Hands on each other, wrestling around in an angry way, everybody's trying to connect some punches, right? I ended up taking out the knife. Now, I'm sorry for all of this, like, dramatic setup. The fight ended with me holding him up against a wall, and I had the knife blade to his throat. And of all the things I don't remember, the one thing I remember was saying to Bobby, "Give me a reason." That's a particularly low moment for me. Give me a reason. Because I'm holding this kid up against a wall with my knife to his throat. Give me a reason. And thankfully, the boys pulled me off of him. And we went on. I don't remember seeing Bobby too many more times after that. The context around how this becomes an even greater low moment for me comes from years later. It got back to me and found out that Bobby had committed suicide. And I'm not arrogant enough to pretend that had anything to do with me or anything to do that night. No, he had his own troubles. He had his own problems. I understand he'd moved to New York City at some point, right, into young adulthood. And I understood that he jumped out of a window several stories up and ended his life. He had gone through apparently a lot in his life. I had found out that he got jumped by a gang. Go figure. I wonder where I heard that story before. Get jumped by a gang and beaten to a pulp. And I never found out if this was true, but the story that came to me was that actually the people that beat him up, like, tried to shove him down a manhole, an open manhole cover. We're trying to literally stuff him into a sewer. So I have this memory of this individual who I went too far, who then ultimately had so much trauma in his life that he chose to end his life, and that's what makes it worse. Forget about forgiveness, forget about atonement, forget about any of that. It's over. It's gone. It's done. It's gone. And that's probably the big one. That's the big one. So, as we're running a little longer than I expected here, but so let me turn back to my future wife. I've said enough times. I don't know why she associated with me. She saw something in there that I didn't see, and yet somehow she chose to be with me. Up to a point. There was one night I was sitting in my mom's kitchen, middle of the night, drunk as hell. Come home, blast it out. And I was just so happy to have her. So happy. So I called her, right? And she's on the phone with me, and she's talking real quiet because it's the middle of the night, and she doesn't want her parents to hear that she was on the phone. And I'm like, pouring my heart out. I love you so much. You don't understand. And she's trying to work it through with me. And like, yes, I know you love me. I love you too. You're drunk. You need to go to bed. She's trying to talk me through this and get me off the phone. And you don't understand. I love you. Such a jackass. So there was that that ridiculous conversation. You don't understand how much I love you and how much you mean. No, I understand. I love you too. You need to go to bed. You're drunk. So this is the first time that I quit drinking. And so all of this, all these memories, all this trauma, all this ridiculousness, age 12 to now age 17, pouring my heart out to this girl who for some reason is putting up with my dumb shit. And it wasn't long, if not the next day, that she laid down an ultimatum to me and said, look, I can't do this anymore. And I love you and I don't want to leave you, but you have to make a choice. And she left the choice very simple. She said, you can either drink or you can be with me, but you can't do both. That was the first and most important thing that anyone ever said to me. The first time that anybody ever called me out on who I was and what I was about. And this girl that I'd fallen in love with said, yeah, you can't have me and drink. It's not going to happen. So you need to choose. And she laid down, this amazing woman laid down this ultimatum and said, pick. And I'll owe it to whatever universal forces. I don't believe in God. I'll take whatever karmatic balance or whatever, ethereal forces of the universe. I said, God damn right, I'm done. I'm done. Cold turkey, quit drinking. It's over. No more. Not a drop. We're done. I quit drinking that day on the spot. 17 years old. Retired. I used to say I retired when I was 17. And that was critical. And that was the first step towards something better. But it's not the end of the story. It's not. There is one last piece of this puzzle that I have to walk through. But not today. I'm gonna stop there, and we're gonna pick this up on the important date. December is an important month for me, so I will address this on Monday. We'll finish this story. That's it for today. Tomorrow's Friday. That's the end of my podcasting week. Tomorrow I will bring you a conversation with my buddy Matt that I've been talking about. So interested to share his story with you and a conversation that I had that I thoroughly enjoyed. That'll be tomorrow. And I will come back on Monday and I will close out this chapter in my life and share a very important situation, set of circumstances, and what happened in the end. Okay. All right. That should be good enough for now. If you took any time to listen to this, thank you. I do genuinely appreciate anyone who listens. And I hope wherever you are that you and your family are safe and healthy and everybody's okay. I will stop here for now. That'll do. I'll come back tomorrow and we'll do some more. All right. Thanks so much for your time. And wherever you are, of course, have a good one.